Welcome back to a live reading of The Effigy of Love, as written by Tony Sherboom and read by Juho Hankala. This is Chapter 18, A Darkness That Absorbs All Light. Eventually, all good things come to an end. The newly painted world slowly succumbed to night's embrace, forcing the conjoined souls to take shelter inside one of the low houses of stone and wood. As they lay underneath the softest of covers, with the warmest of fires crackling in the hearth, they surrendered wholly to each other's silent embrace. Their burning passion and boundless love having mixed together into something words couldn't even begin to describe, Hendrik finally fell asleep, having fulfilled his lifelong dream. Alas, the moment was very much like a dream, fleeting, ephemeral. Upon opening his eyes, Hendrik found himself far removed from the warmth he was only recently surrounded with. In its stead, he was showered by massive snowflakes and cold, pale moonlight that revealed a realm of ashen white ruins around him, not one of infinite love. As he pushed himself up to his knees, the sleet underneath him melted and clawed back at his fingers. He threw anxious and frightened eyes around him, sensing something evil stirring within him and without. What is this nightmare? Where am I? What's going on? Why can't I wake up? Gone was the house they had made their home. Gone was the town and their melodious neighbors. Gone were the millions of colors they had painted the world. Gone was her song, his love, his everything. Everything that had been so sweet and embracing had been replaced by a thick and oppressive wintry gray filled with the echoes of terrifying howls. The realization he had somehow been transported back to what he had left behind made the cold seep into Hendrik's bone and marrow, effectively paralyzing him where he knelt. In front of him, blurry orange light approached, smearing shadows meaner than his darkest fears all over the forest. Suddenly, something vicious and low came charging at him, snarling and barking like the guardian of Hell's Gates. Hendrik curled up into a ball at the foot of the great oak, wishing with all of his powers that he would wake up. His whole body was shivering from the cold fear that had washed over him as the beast, smelling of rank death and wet fur, barked by his feet. "I've found the boy!" A rough, all too familiar voice bellowed in the woods, making Hendrik tense up even further. "Call in the dogs and fall back to the glade." The four-legged death breather suddenly perked up and darted away, only for Felth, and even fouler death breather, to take its place. The brute of a man spat on the ground as he held the torch closer to Hendrik, revealing a sorry blue ball of misery. With a chuckle that sounded like rattling chains, he sheathed his glistening sword and growled to someone on his left. "Get this cowering, miserable runaway up from the ground and follow me. The boy needs a lesson." A barely audible, stammered "No," was all Hendrik could muster, as heavy boots approached him, trampling the moss and roots around the pond. He made himself as small as he could, as the ironclad hands slithered their way underneath his arms and started pulling him to his feet. But he would not let the grey lay one finger on him. Or so he thought. Struggling against his inevitable fate only led to him feeling a steel fist in his ribs and stomach, swiftly extinguishing his rebellious thoughts. Groaning and coughing as wind and embers dragged him across the glade, he watched a staggering amount of men emerge from the shadows, their heavy feet trampling all over the tranquil green of his little haven, turning it into a wet paste underneath their iron heels. Once wind and embers had dragged Hendrik to the other end of the clearing and thrown him at Feld's feet, did he feel the tiniest hint of relief. That they were leaving was good. Not for him, but for the glade. He knew that nothing good would come out of his rebellious act, and he hated being at the mercy of Felth. But he could take a beating. He would get back up again. Of that he was sure. What breaks you only makes you stronger. Watching the captain flap his tongue, he shut his ears to the world. The sight of that ugly man only made the embers of his rage smolder within him, evaporating the fear, tempering his resolve. The grey might have won this time, but he would never give up on fleeing this accursed place. How he was back here, he had no idea, But it mattered little. What mattered was reaching her again, and he would do anything to succeed. Thus he bit his tongue and let the taunt stoke the inferno within. A guard carrying a burlap sack approached Felth. As the captain grabbed it, the sound of glass on glass rang over the twilight grove. The multiple, tiny kinks reverberated with something inside of Endrick, but in his adamant fury he ignored it. Everything changed, though, as Felth opened the bag and took out a container of paint. His paint. The fire inside of him erupted, coloring his world black and red with molten rage. The captain must have seen it in Endrick's eyes, for a contorted smile crept up onto his face. "Tired of the grey, huh?" he spat, interrupting Endrick before he even had uttered a single syllable. Endrick watched Felth juggle the container in his hand. The foul creature would not get any satisfaction out of this. Thus, no matter how the inferno within him demanded to be released, he kept his tongue in check. But oh, it was hard, for Felth only continued his barrage of insults. "The grey won't reach me, for I want to let it. Why don't we help you paint this little heaven on earth a new shade of green and gold? Seems you like those colors, don't you?" Endrick drew a quick breath, and the tiniest fraction of fear shone in his eyes. How? That single hint of an emotion that spread across Endrick's face and vanished as soon as he had emerged was enough for Felth to know that he had succeeded. The grimace on the captain's face revealed the true colors of his heart, blacker than the void. "Why, the look in your face is priceless. I wish I had a canvas with me. That way I could paint you a pretty little picture and show you how angry you look. I guess I'll have to find a substitute." Endrick was starting to froth at the mouth in anger, but before he snapped, the captain hurled the container of paint against the great oak by the pond. The glass shattered into dozens of pieces, falling to the ground like tiny stars, glistening weakly in the pale moonlight, and blobs of paint rained all over the tree and the clearing. "You mongrel of a man!" Endrick spat, and felt the inferno within conflagrate him completely. As he was about to rise to his feet in an attempt to tackle the captain, wind and embers dug their sharp claws into Endrick's shoulders and kept him on his knees. "Let go of me, you dim-witted puppets, or I'll have you—" Felth completely ignored the boy, lifted out another container of paint and sent it too, flying over the pond and crashing into the oak. "Those are my colors. Don't you dare touch them with your filthy hands. With God as my witness, if as much as one more job will feel the pressure of your grey fingers upon them, may God help your sorry soul, for I shall show you no mercy." Endrick tried, wrangling himself free from the guard's grip, but to no avail. They gripped him tighter still, making him even angrier at the world and himself. Felth smiled as if feeding off the anger, and emptied the burlap sack one container at a time. Once the bag was emptied of jars, and Endrick almost burned to cinders, he handed the bag back to the guard in exchange for a torch. "Have you calmed down now? Good. Then watch the masterpiece if you'd be so kind. I know you like colors, so tell me, is this colorful enough for you?" He pointed the torch toward the oak, ruined and stained beyond comprehension. Endrick didn't reply, nor cast a glance at it. He clenched his jaw and wished his gaze could kill. That way Felth would be dead 100 times over. "I said." Felth raised his voice to a near shout as he grabbed Endrick's chin and turned his face toward the paint-stained clearing. Gnarly roots, sharp stones, damp moss, all the beauty in the woods turned into a silent cacophony of a butchered rainbow. "Is this colorful enough for you? I can't for the life of me see any grey anywhere." Endrick bit of a reply that would only have awarded him a reddened cheek or a blackened eye. The fire had ran hot for so long, to no avail that he knew better than to let any more of it out. But by God, how much he wanted to let it seize control of him completely and just erase the grey from the world for good. Alas, the two silent dragons kept him pinned down, and there were a dozen more of them lurking in the shadows. Besides, it wasn't his duty to mete out justice. His one and only job was to flee, not fight. Thus, Having accepted the course of his fate, Hendrik instead locked up the rage to harness it later. God only knew what punishment awaited him ahead, but he would be ready. But what would unfold next, he was totally unprepared for. Don't like it? Felth pursed his lips and let go of Hendrik's jaw. Me neither. I think it's missing something, maybe a touch of red. As he finished the sentence, he threw the torch through the air like a flaring javelin of fire. Before Hendrik could comprehend what had just happened, the torch had already flown over the pond and smashed against the trunk of the oak, instantaneously igniting the chemical fumes and turning Hendrik's haven into a vision of hell, the fires slowly eradicating everything it touched. The scene was utterly horrifying to watch. The branches snapped as the colorful chemical fire ate its way through them. The wrinkled bark turned to black cinders, and ash danced on the wind with the falling snow. Get little boy Grey-eyed back to the castle before he vomits all over himself, Felth muttered as he turned his back to his infernal creation. Please, God, let's be safe and as far away from all this chaos as possible. The silent prayer was the last thing on Hendrik's mind before something blunt and heavy connected with his head, making a complete and absolute darkness absorb all the chaotic light in front of him, effectively sending him back to her, if only in a dream.